Hot news opinion: Trump's transgender military ban gets a boost. The New York Times. There was no need for the Supreme Court to reinstate a misguided ban on transgender service members. The editorial board represents the opinions of the board, its editor, and the publisher. It is separate from the Supreme Court has decided that it's so vital to let President Trump keep transgender people out of the military that it has allowed his ban on their service or enlistment to go forward before even hearing arguments on the validity of his discriminatory decision. The president announced the ban on Twitter in July 2017, surprising even the Joint Chiefs of Staff and his own defense secretary. The Pentagon later, one American Civil Liberties Union lawyer called the new and ostensibly improved transgender ban, and a former naval aviator, reacting to the Supreme Court's latest move, wrote in a Times op-ed that the justices provided for their decision, which puts on hold rulings that have been in place for well over a year and that have allowed transgender troops to continue to serve openly under a directive by the Obama administration. The four more liberal members of the court, Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Stephen Breyer, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan, dissented from the Supreme Court's order, a signal that they would have let the appeals process continue and for the ban to remain suspended until the case reached the court at a later time. It is difficult to parse cryptic orders that contain no reasoning. But this latest, to make that case, the Justice Department has argued for some time now that pushing a case along through the appellate process, UAA tried and true principle of the third branch of government, UAI, is somehow a political tool of the left that hampers good government. In October, weeks before his ouster, Attorney General Jeff Sessions derided the rise of on executive priorities. Executive branch officers do not work for the judiciary, he said in remarks to the Conservative Heritage Foundation. We work for the press. Mr. Sessions was referring to a series of rulings by lower courts that had impeded the Trump administration from acting on its worst impulses, including the transgender military ban, as well as its attempts to add a citizenship question to the 2020 census and to roll back protections for young people who are part of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Acting in part on Mr. Sessions' alarm about activist judges, the Justice Department has sought to leapfrog intermediate courts and has in these and other disputes. But these efforts, as challengers to the military ban put it in one, parties are not entitled to treat the Supreme Court of the United States as a court of first review. For what it's worth, the High Court on Tuesday did not agree, instead letting separate appeals play out while the Department of Defense figures out how to enforce the ban, a modicum of restraint for a court increasingly bombarded with requests to react to exigencies of Mr. Trump's own making. In its legal filings, the Trump administration has argued that allowing transgender people to serve poses too great a risk to military effectiveness and lethality, and that the military is at risk of being made to maintain a policy that it has determined, in its professional judgment, to be contrary to the national interest. But none of this fear-mongering. Many of the alleged, by reinstating the ban, the Supreme Court effectively validated President Trump's unsubstantiated UFOs that also have fueled his administration's attempts in other areas. The Defense Department, for its part, is with the Supreme Court's intervention and stands ready to implement the ban, though against it will delay those efforts somewhat. The Justice Department, as seen with other restrictions Mr. Trump has pursued, such as policies targeting Muslim travelers and asylum seekers, Tuesday's ruling confirms that serve as a check on an administration bent on inflicting harm, but they can only do so much. Follow the New York Times opinion section on, and
Raindrop, drop top, top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.